I slammed the front door behind me and struggled with my keys, shaking hands. Although there was quietness in the home, it seemed oppressive and full of whispered facts. I knew precisely where Christopher would be, not at work as he had told me this morning, but most likely drinking away his sorrows again. His car was not in the driveway. I murmured, "Damn it, Christopher," and threw my handbag on the kitchen counter. With more force than required, I hit play as the answering machine flashed accusingly. "This is Alice, miss. Grace from Midwest Insurance is here. I'm phoning to inquire further about the termination claim your husband made last week." My stomach fell out. Termination? 2 weeks prior, Christopher had made a firm vow to resign from his position at the bank, claiming creative differences with his supervisor. Since it was his third job in as many years, I had been in doubt, but I also wanted to believe him. Once more, the device beeped. "It's your mother-in-law, Grace, sweetie. I hope you're not working past midnight once more. Christopher is in desperate need of your help right now. Please give me a call back." I shot Nicole with a sharp stab and erased her message. She would naturally side with him. She thought Christopher was perfect and that my fault was the reason for all of his flaws. With a creak, the front door opened, and I braced myself. Reeking of liquor and defeat, Christopher staggered in. He stumbled and tried to pull off an off-center smile. "Hey, babe," he said. "You're home early." I yelled, "Cut the crap, Christopher. You were dismissed, as I know. You lied to me, but why?" His expression sank, his bloodshot eyes gleaming with shame. I didn't want to upset you again." "So you thought lying was the more appropriate option?" Frustrated, I ran a hand through my hair. How are we supposed to have faith in each other if you can't even be honest about something like this? Head in his hands, Christopher slouched down on the couch. "I apologize, Grace. This time I really messed up." "This time?" I raised my voice and reverberated. "Christopher, this is starting to feel familiar. We can't carry on in this manner." He muttered something about a frustrated client and a missed deadline. The same old tale, new day. With my thoughts racing, I paced the living room. I strongly stated, "We need to make some changes. I can't keep having the only reliable income in this household, and you need to—" I was interrupted by a ringing phone. With a look of relief at the interruption, Christopher lunged for it. "Oh, hello, Mom," he said, giving me a beseeching glance. I rolled my eyes and went to the kitchen, desperate for a private moment. From the other room, I heard Christopher's voice as I filled a glass with water. "Yes, Grace is present. She, I guess, learned about the position. No, I haven't mentioned that to her yet." I froze, gripping the glass harder. What more did he have hidden? With a quiet, agitated voice, Christopher was saying, "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. Grace won't— No, I know you're attempting to help, but—" With a fury, I returned to the living room. "What won't happen, Christopher? What clever scheme has your mother now devised?" Panicked, Christopher's eyes grew wide. "Not a thing. Mom, it's nothing at all. I had to leave." Swiftly hanging up, he avoided looking at me. "Christopher, why aren't you telling me?" I asked in a somewhat aggressive tone. He fidgeted with the cord of his phone, glancing away from me. "It's simply, Mom decided it would be a good idea to come and spend some time with us. You know, to lend a hand." The glass broke on the hardwood floor as it fell out of my grasp. Glass fragments and water scattered at my feet served as the ideal illustration of the shambles our lives had become. I uttered softly, "Your mother wants to shift with us?" Christopher gave a pitiful nod. "Just for a while, until I can get back on my feet." I was stunned and just stared at him. It was a bad dream. Nicole, living under our home, with her withholding of compliments and critical gaze. The idea itself gave me the creeps. "Grace, please," asked Christopher. "That won't last very long. We require assistance and—" I cut in, speaking sharply. Christopher, this decision does not involve us. We won't let you and your mother choose how we respond to your errors. I pivoted on my tiptoe, cautiously across the shattered glass. I said, "Clean this up," over my shoulder. "I need some air." Just as I was reaching for the door to get my keys, I heard Christopher yelling in desperation. "Grace, wait! Where are you heading?" With my hand on the doorknob, I hesitated. I said, "To figure out how to fix the mess you've made of our lives," without turning around. "And Christopher, don't wait up." After an insomniac night, I rushed into my workplace the following morning, my head pounding. I didn't need to deal with Nicole's critical attitude on top of Christopher's fabrications. And yet there she was, my phone ringing nonstop, her number flashing. "Grace speaking," I curtly replied while steeling myself. With a sweet voice, Nicole said, "Grace, dear," throughout the exchange. "I hope I'm not disturbing your very important work." My teeth were clenched. "What can I do for you, Nicole?" "I'm worried about Christopher," she said with a dramatic sigh. "He hasn't been himself recently. I can't help but wonder whether he's being impacted by your career concentration." My hand gripped the receiver more tightly. "Excuse me?" Nicole said. "Well, you know how men are," ignoring the rage that was rising within me. "They require care and support. Christopher has always possessed empathy. Maybe if you spent more time at home—" "Nicole," I interrupted, speaking in a frighteningly low tone. "Christopher is an adult. His employment issues are entirely his own fault. But as his wife—" "As his wife," I cut him off. "I've been providing for our financial needs for years, while Christopher works odd jobs. You dare not suggest that I'm to blame for this." Astonished, Nicole gasped, "Grace, I'm just attempting to assist. If you're too busy moving up the corporate ladder to be Christopher's support system, someone else needs to be." "Stop it right there," I yelled. "The issue is not with my career. Christopher's incapacity to work consistently is. Furthermore, Nicole, your indulgence isn't helping him in any way." "Well, I never," Nicole snorted. "If that's what you feel, it might be better if I came to spend some time with you two. It's obvious that Christopher needs encouragement at home." My heart felt icy. "That won't be required," I firmly stated. "Christopher and I can handle our own business." With an air of menace, Nicole said, "We'll see about that," and hung up. Furious, I slammed the phone down. That woman's nerve, as if I hadn't gone above and above to assist Christopher. His text buzzed across my phone. "Mom is concerned for us. Perhaps she should be allowed to visit." Ignoring that, I concentrated on my work. The time passed quickly as I lost myself in spreadsheets and client conversations, trying not to worry about the state of my house. I eventually left the office at around 8 o'clock in the evening. I froze as soon as I pulled into our driveway. I had Nicole's car parked where I usually have it. They were in the kitchen when I spotted them, with Nicole fussing over place settings and Christopher trembling to stir a pot. "What's going on?" I thudded down my briefcase and demanded. Nicole turned around, beaming. "Grace, sweetheart, we were wondering when you would come see us. I decided to make dinner if that's okay with you." "You did take some liberties, okay?" I scowled at Christopher and mumbled. He looked away from me, suddenly taking a keen interest in his food. "Christopher mentioned you two were encountering some difficulties," Nicole said in a tone that was filled with pretense. "I thought a nice family dinner might help settle things over." I gave a sour laugh. "Dinner with the family? Is that the nature of this?" At last, Christopher raised his gaze. "Please, Grace. Mom is only attempting to assist." "Help?" I lost it. "By hiding in my house and ambushing me? By attributing your issues to me?" Nicole let out a gasp. "I would never—" "Hold it," I yelled. "This morning I had enough. You were rather clear about your opinions on me and my job." Christopher moved to get in our way. "That's unfair, Grace. Mom comes because she is concerned." I shot back, "Oh, she cares all right. She cares about dominating our lives, about making me the villain in her perfect little story." "Now," Nicole said in a deceptively sweet voice, "I realize you're stressed up, but this doesn't need to be so dramatic. How about we all take a seat and—" "No," I firmly said. "I refuse to do this. Not this evening." After a demanding workday, I arrived in the driveway and noticed Nicole's car remained parked in the same spot for the previous week, as I spent my week in a motel. This made my stomach turn. I inhaled deeply, steeled myself, and went inside. It appeared as though a tornado had struck the living room. All over the place were bags filled to the brim with clothes, crates full of trinkets, and framed pictures of Nicole and Christopher all over the place. What the hell is going on? With my voice echoing throughout the house, I demanded. Glancing sheepishly out of the kitchen, Christopher emerged. "Grace, sweetheart, I can explain." He was about to continue when Nicole entered the room with a victorious look. "Isn't that amazing? I can now assist you with household chores and free up more time for you to concentrate on your profession." I could feel my face's blood disappear. "Stay for how long?" Christopher ducked from my stare, shuffling his feet. "You see, Mom's had her own set of financial difficulties. Maybe she could stay with us until she gets back on her feet," I reasoned. "Live with us?" I spoke again, getting louder. "Christopher, we're barely making enough money to survive. How are we expected to help your mother as well?" "Christopher, we're barely making enough money to survive. How are we expected to help your mother as well?" Nicole gave a tongue cluck. Nicole went on. "Now, Grace, there's no reason to be so dramatic. I'm confident we can pull it together with a little tightening of the belt. Family is first, after all." I spun around to face her. "Nicole, this is not your choice to make. Christopher and I live here together." "Obviously, my dear," Nicole remarked condescendingly. "But Christopher agrees it's for the best, don't you, sweetheart?" With a feeble nod, Christopher aroused something inside of me. "How dare you!" I moved closer to him and growled. "How dare you decide this without even consulting me? Christopher, this is my life. This is my house, too." "Please, Grace," Christopher begged. "We need to help Mom. We can't simply ignore her the way you ignored your work obligations," I snapped back. "Or would you mind explaining how you've turned your back on our marriage by lying to me?" Nicole exclaimed. "Grace, that's not a way to speak to your husband." I turned to face her. "And you, strolling in here, criticizing my choices, blaming me for Christopher's flaws, and now you expect me to support you." "I'm merely attempting to assist," Nicole remarked. "Someone has to keep this family together." "We were doing very well before you showed up," I said. Christopher moved to get in our way. "That's enough, Grace. Mom's staying, that much is certain," he stated firmly. I was filled with surprise and betrayal as I gazed at him. "And? Christopher, you don't get to decide that on your own." "Well, someone has to make rules around here," he replied. "You're never home anyway." The words struck me like a blow to the body. I staggered back and picked up my handbag. "I'm never home because I'm sweating my ass off to keep us afloat while you move from job to job," I said. Christopher said, "Grace, wait." But I had already started to go toward the door. "No, Christopher. I've had enough of waiting. I'm tired of playing the villain in this situation." At the threshold, I hesitated and turned back to look at them both. "You want to play with Mommy Dearest? Happy families? All right. However, don't count on me to remain and observe." "Where are you heading?" Christopher called. I said icily, "To a hotel, since it seems I'm not welcome in my own house anymore." I heard Nicole's voice wafting out the open door of my car as I got in. "Christopher, let her go. Eventually she'll come to her senses. Would you mind helping me unpack now?" I emerged from the driveway, my vision clouded by tears. How had things ended up here? My life turned upside down, my home invaded, and my spouse preferred his mother to me. A chilly resolve descended upon me as I drove aimlessly through the streets as they were getting darker. Okay, so Christopher and Nicole could play nasty. That game might be played by two. It was time to begin plotting my revenge and my next move. I spent a week in the Comfort Inn trying to get my bearings and figure out what to do next. My resolve was further strengthened by the incessant ringing of my phone, the frantic texts from Christopher, and the passive-aggressive voicemails from Nicole. I had to get back home and take this on head-on. Upon entering the driveway, I observed that Christopher's vehicle had vanished. Perfect, my thoughts said. Without causing trouble, I could take some clothes. But from the kitchen, I could hear Nicole's high-pitched voice as soon as I walked inside the house. "Jacob, I don't care how long it takes. I can't take this anymore from you." With my hand still on the doorknob, I froze. It was obvious that Nicole was in the middle of a heated phone conversation and wasn't aware of me. She growled, "Don't you ever bring up my indiscretion? You're the one who's been stealing from the company for years." My heart raced. What in the world was happening? Nicole snarled, "Okay, file for divorce, but don't think I will allow you for all that you're worth." "Jacob, I am aware of the locations of all the graves." Abruptly, the connection ended, and I heard Nicole's hushed weeping. I was angry, but there was also a tiny bit of sympathy in me. However, as soon as Nicole talked again and left a voicemail, that emotion vanished. "Hello, Christopher. This is Mom. Please chat with Grace about gaining access to a portion of your joint savings. It's only a short-term loan to get me by. She'll understand, I'm sure. We are family after all." I felt a burning rage run through me. She is really daring. Nicole started to jump when I barged into the kitchen. "Grace," she exclaimed, scurrying to wipe her tears. "I didn't notice you came in." "Clearly," I replied sternly, "too busy trying to scam us out of our savings, were you?" Nicole got a pallid face. She stumbled. You heard that?" "Every word," I verified, "including your sweet talk with Jacob. Infidelity and theft of funds, Nicole? What would the neighbors say, oh my?" "You don't understand," Nicole begged, her prior arrogance disintegrating. "Jacob is attempting to destroy me. I require assistance." I gave a sour laugh. "And your plan to fix us instead is to ruin us? To drain us completely while you've been enjoying years of luxury on pilfered funds?" "That wasn't how it was," Nicole objected. "Jacob was in charge of all the money. I was ignorant." "Hold it," I yelled. "I don't care to hear your justifications. I want you to pack up your belongings and leave my house." Nicole's gaze grew strained. "You are unable to exclude me. Christopher extended an invitation for me to stay with him. Watch me." I glared as I moved closer to her. "From the minute you arrived, you have deceived and misled us. You broke into our house, accused me of being Christopher's troublemaker, and now you're attempting to pilfer from us. I am Christopher's mother." Nicole let out a cry. "He'll never pick you over me." As the front door slammed, Christopher could be heard saying, "Mom, what's going on, Grace?" When Christopher walked into the kitchen, Nicole's expression changed abruptly, tears welling up in her eyes. "Oh, Christopher," the woman sobbed. "Grace is being really mean. She desires to cast me out into the open." Christopher glanced at us, his expression clearly showing confusion. "Grace, what?" I told him. "Don't you dare fall for her act. Both of us have been duped by your mother. She cheated on Jacob and has been stealing money for years, which is why she is pursuing a divorce. She now wants to use our savings as collateral to cover her ass." Christopher was astounded. "Mom, is this true?" Nicole started to cry harder. "Please, Christopher, you're not understanding. I was left with no options." My voice steeling, I turned to face Christopher. "Christopher, you need to decide now. She leaves, or I leave. This time, for good." Christopher could feel the tension in the room as he looked between his wife, who was standing solid and uncompromising, and his mother, who was crying. The turmoil was seen in his eyes. I spoke quietly but firmly. "Christopher, this is it." Years of parental deception at odds with the truth staring him in the face. "Our future is being decided right now. Make an informed choice." I held my breath as Christopher opened his mouth to begin, because I knew that whatever happened next would permanently alter all of our lives. Christopher's expression was a mask of pain and uncertainty as his eyes flitted between Nicole and me. He stumbled. I need some time to think," and turned to leave the kitchen. "Christopher, please." With a cry, Nicole reached out to grab hold of him, but he had left, the front door slamming behind him. I shook as I stood there, heartbroken and angry. "I hope you're happy, Nicole," I said. "You've ripped this family apart." Nicole's face, smeared with tears, hardened. "Grace, you accomplished that all by yourself. Had you been a devout spouse—" "Don't you dare," I snapped at her. "I have some stuff to pack. I anticipate you to be gone when I return." I hurried upstairs, packing clothing into a suitcase as my thoughts were spinning. Nicole's garbled voice came to me. She was on the phone once more. I slipped to the top of the steps and listened quietly. She pleaded, "Jacob, please," in a desperate tone. "I require further time. Don't contact the attorneys just yet. I have a strategy." My heart felt icy. What had she been doing? "Christopher and Grace have savings," said Nicole. "If I can just get access—" Nicole begged. "No, they don't suspect anything. Grace is too wrapped up in her career to notice." Grasping the banister, I felt my knuckles whiten. She had plans to pilfer from us. Nicole begged, "I'll have the money, and we can make this all go away." I'd had enough. With a storm cloud on my face, I strode downstairs. When I walked into the room, Nicole jumped and quickly ended the call. "Grace, Hold it," I yelled. "Everything was heard by me. You intend to steal the money, not merely try to borrow it." Nicole's expression twisted. "You're not understanding. If I don't pay Jacob back, he'll ruin me. I was left with no options." "There's always a choice," I remarked indifferently. "And you decided to steal, cheat, and lie. Guess what, though? It's over now." I took out my phone and sent Christopher a text. The message was left on voicemail. "Grace here, Christopher. To pay Jacob back, your mother intends to pilfer our savings. Now go home. We must have a conversation." Nicole sprang at me, attempting to seize the phone. She cried, "You can't do this." I sidestepped her while speaking up. "Observe me. Nicole, it's over. Your deceit, your trickery, everything." The front door swung just then. Christopher entered with a pale face. Whispering, "I heard everything," he declared. The voicemail came in as I was sitting in the car. Nicole sobbed as she fell onto the couch. "Christopher, please, my sweetheart. You're not understanding." Christopher snapped, "I understand perfectly," in a harsh tone. "You've been deceiving us, Mom, using us, and now you have plans to steal from us." I was filled with hope. Could Christopher now see the whole picture? However, he turned to face me, his eyes icy. "And you, Grace, you were so preoccupied with your work that you failed to see what was going on in our own house." My mouth fell open. "Are you for real this time? I've been providing for us while you're unable to work. I've endured your mother's unceasing belittling and manipulating." Christopher gave a head shake. "Maybe if you'd been home more, none of this would have happened." I was staring at him, anger and incredulity fighting within me. That was then I realized what lay ahead of me. A life of never being good enough, of always being the victim, and of giving my everything to a man who would always put his mother before me. "You know what?" I uttered in a deadly calm tone. "Christopher, you're right. I haven't spent enough time here, so let me correct that now." After grabbing my suitcase, I made my way to the door. Grace, hold on. Where are you heading? After me, Christopher called. At the threshold, I hesitated and turned to face the two individuals who had so profoundly betrayed me. I'm going, I declared resolutely. This time, for good. Each of you deserves the other. Examining the divorce documents for what seemed like the 100th time, I sat in my attorney's office. After walking out on Christopher and Nicole 2 weeks earlier, I was determined to safeguard my valuables and myself. Everything appears to be in order, Grace, remarked Sasha, my attorney. The joint accounts have been stopped, and Christopher is not going to have access to your funds. Are you prepared to submit your application? With my palm lingering above the pages, I inhaled deeply. This was it, the irreversible point. My phone buzzed right before I signed. The screen flickered with Nicole's number. Sasha said, "Ignore it." But I wasn't sure I should. I mumbled, "I must at least hear what she has to say." Nicole said, "Grace," in an unusually quiet voice, "please don't end the call. I must speak with you." "Nicole, I have nothing to say to you," I said icily. She pleaded, "Please, I've made a grave error. I need your assistance." I found myself listening to Nicole tell a story of deception and desperation against my better judgment. Her voice broke as she revealed her affair, the falsehoods she told Christopher about me, and her scheme to conceal her husband's financial misappropriation. She wept. "I never intended for it to go this far. I tried to work things out with Jacob if I could only buy some time, but everything fell apart. He's threatening to reveal everything and filing for divorce. There's nowhere else for me to go." Mixed feelings came over me. Rage, sympathy, and vindication. "Why are you telling me this at the moment, Nicole?" "Because I realize now just how incorrect I was," she muttered to herself. "About you, about everything. Grace, I need your assistance, not only for myself, but also for Christopher." The mere mention of Christopher's name made my heart tighten. "What about Christopher?" Nicole shook her voice. "Grace, he's a mess," she said. "Although he is unable to make things right, he at last realizes the truth. He is badly missing you." I forced back tears as I closed my eyes. "Nicole, it's too late for that. I'm currently at my attorney's office getting ready to file for divorce." "No, Grace, please," Nicole sobbed. "Please give us a chance to resolve this. I promise to tell Christopher everything. Simply return home. Come talk to me face to face." I quickly scanned the divorce documents resting on the table before turning to face Sasha, who was observing me warily. Finally, I said, "I need some time to think about this." Nicole said, "Of course," with a hint of optimism in her voice. "Take as much time as you require. We are going to be here." With my head spinning, I hung up the phone. With a scowl, Sasha bent forward. "Remember why you came here, Grace. Refrain from allowing her to manipulate you." I nodded absently, but I was beginning to doubt myself. What would happen if Nicole was being honest? What if this was my opportunity to finally learn the real truth and face her and Christopher head on? I got up and said abruptly, "I need to go." "Sasha, I apologize. Simply put, I must see this through." Sasha sighed, but gave a sympathetic nod. "Grace, exercise caution. Give me a call if you need anything." My feelings tore at me as I drove home. Was it still home? A part of me cried out that Nicole and Christopher would never come to terms with it, that it was a trap. However, there was another side that whispered of optimism and second chances, a portion I thought silenced. I arrived at the driveway with a racing heart. The house felt different, even though it looked the same. I could see Christopher pacing through the window as I got closer to the front door. I noticed a moment of relief flicker across his face as our eyes locked. As I grabbed for the doorknob, my hand shook. This was it. The real deal. All of our lives would be shaped by what transpired next. I inhaled deeply before opening the door and venturing into uncharted territory. As I walked inside, the tension in the house seemed to be overwhelming. Christopher stood in the living room, his face displaying a mixture of fear and relief. With her hands twisting uncomfortably in her lap, Nicole sat on the couch. "Grace." Christopher sighed and stepped in my direction. "I'm so glad you came." I stopped him dead in his tracks with a raised hand. "My purpose is only to listen. You mentioned that you had a message for the two of us, Nicole. Thus, speak." With tears welling up in her eyes, Nicole nodded. I've been lying to you both about everything." Nicole spilled her beans for the next 20 minutes, detailing her extramarital affair, Jacob's thievery from his firm, their imminent divorce, and her desperate scheme to use our money to hide it all. Christopher's hands clenched into fists as his face got paler with each revelation. "How can you, Mom?" With his voice breaking, Christopher whispered. "How could you lie to us like this?" Nicole cried out and reached for Christopher, but he pulled away. "Oh my goodness, my sweetie. It's not where I intended it to end up." Nicole begged, crying, "I thought I could fix things before you found out." I was filled with an abundance of feelings as I stood there, including empathy for Nicole's desperation, anger at her dishonesty, and a growing knowledge that Christopher had also been duped by her manipulation as much as I had. "Christopher," I turned to face my husband and whispered, "Did you know any of this?" Shell-shocked, he shook his head. "Grace, I had no notion, Grace, no God. I assumed Mom only required our assistance. I never thought I would." "That's why I called you," Nicole pleaded in her voice as she interrupted. "I see now how incorrect I was in every way. Please, I need your assistance, both of you." I gave a sour laugh. "Help? Following all that you've done? Nicole, you attempted to pilfer from us. You almost brought our marriage to an end." "I know," she sobbed, "and I'll live out the rest of my days making amends to both of you. But to sort this situation out with Jacob, I need your assistance right now. He'll reveal everything if we don't move quickly, and we'll all fall." Christopher looked at me, desperation in his eyes. "Grace, what should we do?" I could feel the pressure of the situation bearing down on me. This was the turning point, where I had to make decisions that would affect not just my marriage, but also our family's future. I firmly replied, "No," shocking even myself with the steel in my voice. "Nicole, we're not doing this, not any longer." "But Grace," Nicole began, but I interrupted her. "No more deceptions or plots. As with all of us, you created this mess and will have to bear the consequences." Angry, I turned to face Christopher. "I can't continue living this way, Christopher, even though I love you. We cannot continue to support your mother's actions." Christopher slowly nodded as comprehension began to show in his eyes. "You're correct, Mother. I apologize, but Grace is correct. We will not assist you in hiding this." Nicole's expression twisted. "However, what should I do?" "Where am I going to go?" I firmly stated. "That's not our issue anymore," and felt a burden go off my shoulders. "Christopher, we need to talk alone." Christopher and I went back to the kitchen, leaving Nicole sobbing on the couch. There were a lot of hurt and unsaid words in the air between us. "Grace," Christopher said in a passionate voice, "I am such a fool. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" Seeing him closely was something I had not done in months. I saw the man I loved, but I also saw the helpless kid who had allowed his mother to get in the way of our relationship. Sincerely, "I don't know, Christopher," I replied. "I'm not sure if love is enough anymore, even though I adore you. There is a lot for us to sort out." With tears in his eyes, Christopher nodded. "I recognize. Grace, do whatever it takes. I'd like to put this right." The sound of Nicole's cries came from the living room as we stood in our kitchen. I understood that this was only the start. Rebuilding trust, facing the fallout from Nicole's actions, and determining if our marriage could withstand this final test were all part of our long and difficult journey ahead. But I felt a glimpse of hope for the first time in months. I knew I dared to deal with whatever came next. A year later, I was ready for a new beginning as I stood among boxes in my new apartment. 3 months before the divorce became final, I was eager to put this chapter of my life behind me. My supervisor texted me to congratulate me on getting promoted, and my phone buzzed. "We are eager to watch what you do in your new role as director of marketing." I grinned as a wave of pride passed over me. Acknowledgement for my abilities and commitment, rather than criticism for my aspirations, was what I had been striving for throughout. I found an old picture of Christopher and myself when I was unpacking. I felt a brief pang of sadness, but it was swiftly replaced with a calm feeling. After Nicole's confession, we had made an effort to mend our differences, but the damage to our trust was too great. Ultimately, we both realized that love alone isn't enough. The sound of the doorbell startled me out of my daydream. When I opened it, I saw Nicole standing there. She appeared more mature and quiet than I had remembered. "Grace," she murmured, "perhaps I'm not bothering you. I wanted to give you something and apologize once more." She gave me an envelope. There was a large check inside, much more than she had ever attempted to steal from us. "It's everything I have," Nicole said, shakily speaking. "I sold my valuables and the house. I want to apologize to you and Christopher for what I did." I was filled with an extensive range of feelings as I gazed at the check. "Please, Nicole, I know it won't fix anything, but I hope it helps you get started on your new life," she interrupted, "now that I see it." I felt the rest of my anger evaporate as I gazed at this woman who had hurt me so deeply. "Nicole, thank you, but I don't need this. My new life has already begun." I returned the check to her. "Make use of it to make a fresh start. Take this as a lesson and improve." Tears clouded Nicole's eyes. "Grace, you're an incredible woman. I apologize for not noticing it earlier." I sat on my new couch after she went, trying to figure out what had just happened. Once more, my phone rang, and it was Christopher's text message. "I was informed of your promotion. Grace, congratulations. You have always possessed strength." With a dejected smile, I typed back, "Thank you." I recognized that this really was the end of an era as soon as I pushed submit. Though they will always be a part of my past, Christopher and Nicole can no longer influence my future. I moved to the window and peered out at the skyline of the city. My new existence was open to me and full of opportunities. I will never longer compromise my aspirations or darken my brightness in order to appease others. I could be who I was, shamelessly. Excitement was building inside of me as the sun sank, painting the sky in vivid oranges and pinks. I felt more prepared than ever to confront tomorrow head-on, because it was a fresh day and the beginning of the rest of my life. I pondered over all the women who endure the same hardships, battling to be acknowledged and respected while juggling responsibilities to their families and personal goals. It was my goal that by sharing my tale, they would be motivated to demand the respect and affection they were due. I vowed to myself at that very instant. In addition to advancing my profession, I would mentor other women and assist them in finding their voices and pursuing their goals with my new role. Although my journey had been challenging, I had learned so much about self-worth, resiliency, and the importance of keeping true to oneself. I lifted a glass to my reflection in the window as night fell. "Here's to new beginnings," I sang, "to strength, to growth, and to never settling for less than you deserve." I felt pleased for the first time in years, and the future looked promising. I was confident that I had the fortitude to overcome any obstacles that lay ahead. I was Grace, after all, sturdy, driven, and at last blissfully free.